If you're anything like me, then playing a Sonic game normally goes like this. It's practically the whole appeal of Sonic. You know, gotta go fast and stuff. But despite this, these games are full of beautiful and vibrant locations that don't ask you to slow down and appreciate them, and yet completely allow it should you choose to do so. Which, as you can probably guess, is exactly what I want to highlight in this video. I had to give myself a limitation though, as I think we can all agree that games like Sonic Generations, for example, are prettier to look at than, say, Sonic Forces. And it's for that reason I'm only letting myself pick one location per game, since I naturally have a bias towards some of them, like Sonic Unleashed is a treasure trove for this kind of topic. But if I'm only allowed to pick one location, then this video will have more variety as a result, which will hopefully make things more interesting. Oh, and for the record, my selections are entirely chosen off vibes and personal preferences, so feel free to disagree with any of my choices. But with that being said, let's jump to it, shall we? We're gonna start with Sonic 06, a game that isn't exactly known for its graphical prowess. It was clearly aiming for a realistic look, which I don't think is inherently a bad idea. I really like how that turned out in Sonic Frontiers. But in Sonic 06, it could have been better realized, which is especially true for the hub worlds. However, when it comes to levels, I consider this game to have a pretty decent lineup. Aesthetically, I'm actually a fan of what they were going for here. There's nice variety from a beach, to a snowy mountain, to a desert, and of course there's iconic stages like Kingdom Valley and Crisis City. There's a unique vibe around every corner in this game, which made it quite hard for me to pick my favorite area. But after much consideration, and potentially a desire to be different, I finally reached my answer. I hope this isn't a controversial take. I can't deny how iconic the other stages of this game are. But no matter what, I always circled back to Tropical Jungle being my favorite to look at. Maybe it's because of the fantastical nature of it. Like, it's clearly based in realism, but it's very stylized, mostly in the fact that almost all the vegetation is huge, like it's been mutated or something. It makes the jungle feel dense, but also spacious, which is a vibe I think would have been lost if the foliage was its regular tiny size. It's funny how simply making the plant life bigger is what made me like this stage as much as I do, but hey, if it works, it works. I especially like this effect in this area, where you're incredibly high in the air, with nothing but massive trees around you as you have to navigate your way through the precarious situation. Because while just a small area in terms of gameplay, there's something that speaks to me about the ginormous scale of it. It's one of those moments that isn't necessarily a set piece by definition, and yet feels like one as you go through it because of how unique the area is compared to the rest of the stage. Also, check this out. Once you shoot out of the tree area, did you ever notice these massive vines wrapped around the bark you're about to run down? Because I admittedly never noticed it until recording this video, so I wanted to point it out because I think it looks pretty cool. And the stage only gets better because the final area of it is easily my favorite part aesthetically. Even though it's admittedly small. All things considered, there isn't much room to run around, but it's still really pretty. There's ancient totems and massive turtles, one of which you can feed a peach, which it will seemingly eat. There's also this huge spiraling tree bark in the center of it all, something you're able to stand on pretty easily, which in turn leads to an amazing view of the whole area. You can even see what I think are flamingos flying in the distance. The view from up here is breathtaking, and honestly, the final area of Tropical Jungle alone makes me wish we got a jungle biome of sorts in Sonic Frontiers, because I would love to have an area like this with a bigger explorable space. That's enough of Sonic 06 though, let's move on to the next game. Yeah, of course I had to talk about this game. It's no secret that Sonic Unleashed is one of the best looking Sonic games. It's a widespread opinion, and for good reason. This game is a beautiful world-trotting adventure that bases each of its areas on real-world locations. Except for Eggman Land, but that's besides the point. What I'm trying to get at is that it's incredibly hard for me to pick my favorite location from this game. It's the one Sonic game where you could say literally any area is your favorite aesthetically, and all I'd be thinking is, fair enough. Because there is no wrong answer. No matter where you look, you'll find nothing but stunning visuals. Still, whether or not I want to, I have to pick a favorite. So, what's it gonna be? Well, Call me basic if you will, but yes, Apodos is my favorite. I couldn't explicitly tell you why, I just know that this area resonates with me the most. It's probably because out of any of the amazing places you get to visit in Unleashed, Apodos is the one I would like to visit the most. Or Greece, I should say, since that's the real-world counterpart. Which begs the question, since Apodos is pretty unapologetically Greece, is it fair to call Apodos a Sonic location? I'm not sure, but regardless of the answer, I'm going to talk about Apodos anyway, because wow, what a beautiful location. Really, anywhere you look is a visual treat. Even when you're outside of the town itself, the surrounding grasslands look amazing. Of course, there's the iconic windmills, even way out here, but one thing that's unique to this area are the Greek temple ruins that you stop seeing once you've made your way into the town, which I think are a nice touch that help this area stand out. Regardless, the town obviously steals the show. Well, I say town, but it's more like a bunch of villages that are spread out across the many islands that you'll see as you explore. And what can I say other than they just look great. I think my favorite part about them is how seamlessly the level design fits within them. It's obvious that a ton of love was put into making Apodos feel like a real location, which admittedly isn't a unique quality. That kind of love is everywhere in Sonic Unleashed, but it still feels especially good here, and I think that's because, in my opinion, Apodos has the most attention to detail in terms of making it feel like a place where people actually live. This is somewhat lost in other levels due to either taking place away from civilization or having level design that makes zero sense if you imagine a human trying to navigate it. Neither of which I dislike. For the record, every level in this game looks amazing, but there's something that charms me about the way that Apodos specifically was crafted. Of course, there's still moments where the level design clearly took precedent, but I appreciate the attention to detail, like the series of outdoor restaurants that you would normally boost through. This didn't need to exist, and yet adds so much charm for doing so. There's even a side section where you can go up some stairs to find some more seating, as well as one of the weirdest metal placements in the whole game. Outside of individual areas though, taking it slow just about anywhere in this level is a surprisingly nice experience. Like, this is almost objectively the wrong way to play a Sonic game, and yet I found it so rewarding just sauntering through the area and seeing what I can find. Shout out to the pelicans that you can bump into, which then get flustered before pointing in the direction you're supposed to be moving. AKA convincing evidence for Sonic Unleashed being the best Sonic game. However, as good as it is, it can't hog the spotlight forever, as I have more games that I want to shine some light on. Yep, Sonic and the Secret Rings. I'll bet you didn't expect this game to show up, but that's part of the reason why I chose it. By this stage, I feel like most people have written this game off, which I don't really blame them for. This is easily one of the worst controlling games in the series, but it still has a special place in my heart, because despite how clunky it feels to play, I still think it nailed it in the vibes department. A fact that I once attributed to this game being directly influenced by the stories of the Arabian Nights. Which is funny, because something I've recently learned is that this game takes heavy liberties in terms of what it chooses to adapt from those tales, with it often making stuff up. Like, take Dino Jungle for example. Not only are dinosaurs obviously not in the Arabian Nights, but humanity didn't even know about the existence of them when those tales were created. But that's not me complaining. Whether or not this game is accurate to the Arabian Nights, I still think it has a brilliant lineup of locations, each offering their own unique vibes. And naturally, my favorite one of them all has to be... Okay, let me set the scene. Not only are you miles high up in the air, flying at rapid speeds, but you're also traveling through crumbled ruins that just so happen to be on the backs of massive f***ing manta rays. This stage, Levitated Ruins, baffles me from a conceptual standpoint, and yet I am all for it. I think I like it so much because it combines a bunch of different tropes that I'm already a big fan of. Crumbled ruins from some past civilization? Check. Creatures so big that they can have trees or even buildings on their back? Check. An explorable area levitating high in the air? Check. And I haven't even mentioned that this area includes what is easily one of my favorite visual set pieces in the entire franchise, aka running on a path of light suspended in the air. A spectacle that's popped up numerous times in games like Sonic Frontiers and, of course, Sonic Colors. Admittedly, the gameplay in sections like this have always been very limited, but if we're just talking spectacle, then I love what they do visually. I just find it satisfying to look at, even if it's a relatively simple idea. And for the record, this game is the first time we ever saw this kind of spectacle in a Sonic game as far as I know, so it gets brownie points for that. But back to Levitated Ruins as a whole, and I'll admit I don't have a lot more to add. I simply like the stage. I think it's unique, I think it stands out, and I love its vibe, which is only exemplified by its music. Because weirdly, this is the only stage in the game, outside of the tutorial, that doesn't feature a vocal track. Which I don't necessarily think is a good or a bad thing, but it does help the stage stand out among the rest. Not that it really needed the help, I just thought I should mention it. That is all I have to say about Levitated Ruins though, as it's time for the next game. Sonic Adventure is one of those games where you can go just about anywhere and be met with charming visuals. The graphical fidelity of which is debatable, but for its time I think this is a very pretty game that holds up decently well. That is if you install mods, because the current ports of this game don't do it much justice with the broken lighting system as well as the boatload of other issues, but that's besides the point. For the sake of this video, I'll be using mods that restore how the original release of the game used to look, with the bonus of widescreen, because why not? Now believe it or not, this was the game that inspired me to make this video in the first place. All because one day I was running around the hub world of Mystic Ruins and found myself noticing how much I enjoyed simply taking in the sights. Which wasn't some huge revelation, I tend to do this in games every so often, but I never thought I'd make a video about it until that day. Which isn't to say that I'm picking Mystic Ruins as the location, by the way, no. After much deliberation, that honor instead falls upon... I know this is a bit of a generic pick, and I apologize for not having better taste, but there's no denying that Icecap is pretty cool. Once again, I'm not sure why I like this stage as much as I do. In fact, in this case, I feel like I should like other stages more, like Red Mountain, Speed Highway, or Twinkle Park, and yet I kept coming back to this stage being my favorite visually, so I'm rolling with it. From the get-go, a detail I immediately love about the stage is the opening area, or more specifically, the slope that you reach once you get out of the cave. Not because it's super unique or anything, but rather because you pass by this same place later in the stage when you're snowboarding down the mountain, which is a detail I happen to quite like. The area following this section has you fall into a vertically shaped cave that you then have to climb your way out of. And let me just say, the ambience for this area is immaculate. Almost too immaculate, to the point where I started questioning things, and I'll admit that I found out that this isn't how the area is supposed to look. It should look like this. However, I had the mod Dynamic Fog turned on while recording, which undeniably gives this area a different vibe to vanilla. But it's a vibe that I like, so I'm keeping the mod on, if that's okay. Because while it does add to it, I think the area stands on its own regardless. It has so many small moments I'm a fan of, like when you need to jump from icicle to icicle in order to get around. Or this moment where there's a line of ice platforms you need to run on that have this cool icy effect surrounding them. Not to mention how once you make your way to the top, you knock down this huge icicle that then opens a drawbridge, which is entirely over the top, but only in the best of ways. Once you make your way out of this area though, it's time for the snowboarding section, which is, you know, fine, though it's probably the weakest part of this stage. Who am I kidding? This is an iconic set piece that easily speaks for itself, to the point where I could probably shut up and let it do the talking. Which I'm not going to do, but I'll admit I considered. There is some really nice scenery as you snowboard down the mountain, from the open areas, to the caves, to all of the ramps and the jumps that you can do on them. It's all great. There's even this nice little town you pass through that has a bunch of windmills in it. It's a shame that it gets bombed as you snowboard through it, but it's still a nice little area that I wish I could explore some more, and that goes for the end of this stage too, as once you make your final jump past some hot air balloons, you see yet another town. A detail which, while unnecessary, brings some uniqueness and life to the area, which makes me like it all the more. It also serves as a great closing visual to a fantastic stage. As I'm sure you've noticed, there are quite a lot of Sonic games that I did not cover in this video. And my reasoning why is due to video length, and my worry of putting too much time into a project that people may or may not be interested in. However, depending on the reception to this video, I would be more than willing to return to this topic and continue highlighting more Sonic locations that I think are neat, because there are quite obviously a ton of amazing places that I've yet to cover. So yeah, if you'd be interested in that, let me know what games or locations you want to see in the comments. And of course, feel free to subscribe, since it's free and there is no downside to doing so. With that being said though, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.